So thank you. Thank you again for being here. I also want to share that this session is being translated in Spanish. So we're all going to do our best to speak slowly, and we ask others also to do the same. I also want to acknowledge the oranges that are on your chairs. If you have already, it's okay, but ideally it would be great if you can hang on to that orange. It will be part of a story later. We realize we did not share that, and I see the faces in the room of those and that's okay. It's okay. Just acknowledging it now. So again, thank you everyone for being in this session. This is a really special one for me. It's a really nice way to start the day. Sometimes we go to conferences and we feel like we're all up in our heads, and this session is about our hearts. This session is really about getting into the heart space. So I hope that that feels good for everyone. So this session is about the power of food in holding memories, reconnecting with identities, and preserving cultures. Our memories of food are really strong, and they're often held deep within us. They're powerful because they engage all of our senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. When all of our senses are activated, memories become incredibly vivid and often deeply emotional. For many diasporic communities, food memories and culinary practices are a portal to their culture and motherland. Diaspora refers to people, just so everyone knows when we say diaspora refers to people who share a national or regional origin, but for a variety of reasons, live outside of their traditional homeland. People that are part of diasporic communities find themselves in a liminal space, or a space between, and often struggle to maintain a sense of identity and belonging where they are. I know for me, being part of a very large Indian diaspora in the US, I have spent the first couple of decades of my life assimilating to American culture. My journey of reconnecting with my roots, my identity, and my homeland has primarily been through food and farming. So in today's session, we will journey into the hearts and minds of 3 diasporic communities: Palestinian, Somalian, and Ethiopian, for a beautiful and sensory, hence the orange, and what you see in front of us, experience that uplifts the stories and traditions that have shaped a handful of community leaders in our region. After hearing their stories, we will also open up space for people in the audience to share stories as well, if you feel so inclined. For now, I will pose a question for you to just sit with in case you do want to share something at the end of this session or after we hear from our speakers. So what is a food memory that helps you feel a sense of belonging and a part of your identity? What is a food memory that helps you feel a sense of belonging and a part of your identity? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our beautiful storytellers. And we'll be starting with Lorraine, who will be speaking to her motherland of Palestine. And then we have, I think I'm going in order, I'm looking in order, and then we go with Faiza, who will be speaking from the motherland of Somalia. And then Sige and Eden, who will be speaking from their motherland of Ethiopia. So with that, Lorraine, I will pass this to you.
Hello, everyone. I have a script that I wrote out that I'm going to be reading off of. I have been getting about 3 hours of sleep on average per night. And so my script is going to help me stay on track for the next 15 minutes. And I want to just say that my presentation today is radically different than what I intended to initially present on, given the escalation of state violence against Palestinians. So I'm going to start with an introduction. My name is Lorraine Khalil Rahan. Sometimes I'm Lorraine. Occasionally I'm Lureen. And other times I am Lulu. These were names gifted to me so that I could shapeshift through the cultural landscapes that many of us in diaspora and forced exile are required to when we are assigned hyphenated identities. Thank you. The name Lorraine grants me passing privilege, a privilege reaffirmed by my lighter skin, a privilege not afforded to my siblings or my Baba, Khalil. Lorraine gives me the option to camouflage, to shrink if I sense danger, or to expand if required to be brave, a public identity. Lureen allows me to be Arab in the motherland and in her neighboring homes. It informs others that I could roll my R's and pronounce the emphatic and guttural sounds in the Arabic language, but that I was an outsider and that I would have an accent. Also, a public identity. The name Lulu is the name that I use in private, in the most intimate settings with family and close friends. It was given to me by my mama, Basima. Lulu means pearl in Arabic, a pearl which is concealed and forms inside of a living creature, an oyster. This incredible organism responds to an external threat and undergoes a biological process to form the pearl. Eventually, the pearl can be released from the oyster naturally or with a harvester. But neither option guarantees invulnerability. However, remaining hidden is not an option, and external threats will just take on new forms. I don't think my mom thought of herself or the womb as an oyster when she named me. But I do think this metaphor speaks to a type of self-preservation, a kind of concealing and then revealing that has been practiced in my family and is reflected in my creative work. I am a Palestinian artist, storyteller, and educator, living and working on unceded Kumeyaay land. I create work devoted to the remembrance of Palestine, in defiance of ongoing settler colonial erasure. My creative process includes archiving, social practice, cooking, printmaking, embroidery, teaching, and writing. My work explores the intergenerational lived experiences of my family in the motherland and in forced exile, situated within the collective memory of Palestine. I recently created Lulu's Kitchen, a food-based project which centers the preservation of Palestinian culinary traditions and storytelling practices through intimate dining experiences. I would like to invite you to grab the orange that has been handed to you. And for about 2 minutes, I want you to silently peel the orange and be present with all of the senses that you are able to access. Consider what memories emerge. When was the last time you peeled an orange? Consider the aroma, the soundscape in the room, the texture changes from the rind to the flesh, the visual shifts as you work your way through it, and if you would like to indulge in the taste of it. So we can go ahead and begin. You may continue peeling the orange and eating it. However, as you are doing that, I would like to introduce you to my Sido Saudi, my maternal grandfather who transitioned in 2011. My Sido was originally from a place called Lid, a town in historic Palestine. He and his family became dispossessed of their ancestral land in 1948 with the colonization of Palestine, an ethnic cleansing that Palestinians refer to as the Nakba in Arabic, or the catastrophe. He became a refugee at 5 years old and lived in a refugee camp in the West Bank until his teenage years before migrating to the US. Sido told non-Arabs that he was Lebanese, rather than admitting that he was a Palestinian. Maybe he felt that being Lebanese was less political, or perhaps because he knew that Palestinians were considered human animals, a recent quote by Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, warranting genocide on 2.3 million people in Gaza. Sido was our family storyteller. Most of the stories he shared with his grandchildren had us questioning the legitimacy of his tales. They were imaginative, lighthearted, and heroic. However, during our time, he imparted a sage on me that serves as a compass for Lulu's kitchen. Sido held a deep affinity for land. Because of him, I know how to split a fig, seed a pomegranate, and peel an orange. Sido taught his grandchildren about sacred connection to land, about the Creator, and about the power of community without explicitly revealing the trauma he endured and without referring to himself as a refugee. He taught me to not fear the spider that crawled up my leg, reminding me that a spider spun a web of protection to conceal the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, as he sought sanctuary in a cave, fleeing from those who intended to harm him. He taught us that crickets chirping was a reminder of safety and of life itself. As kids, we would observe the ants move in and out of formation, and he used the metaphor of the ants to teach us about protecting interdependency, about honoring the collective and the sacredness of all living things. My maternal grandmother, Sito Amine, is originally from Lid, Palestine, like my Sido. She became a refugee at 3 years old in 1948 and lived in a refugee camp in the West Bank until she migrated to the US. Sito had a very different relationship with the land than my Sido. She would take everything that was harvested and create an abundant spread of dishes, making nearly everything from scratch and without measuring a single ingredient. She and my grandfather would host legendary dinner parties called haflas, where they would prepare a feast for no particular reason other than the fact that they were alive and wanted to create space for joy and pleasure through food for community. They would invite their friends who were also in the diaspora, or as Palestinians call it, the shatat, a forced exile. And they would sit around the table for hours, exchanging stories, laughing, playing cards, and playing music and dancing. And then everyone would go back to the table for seconds and thirds. Our homes were sanctuaries, and the culinary and storytelling traditions practiced in them became the threads that wove our experiences into the motherland's tapestries. Like my Sito rarely talked about 1948 or her experience migrating. She did tell me that she traveled with her siblings and her mom on a ship through the sea, and the majority of the people experienced seasickness, but she didn't. That ocean breeze made her feel free. Over the last 5 years, I've spent time with her documenting her process in the kitchen and writing out recipes to try and quantify the ingredients since she doesn't measure. I learned about the many ways that our cuisine has shifted. I learned that in the camps, Sito's mom would make shish barak, a type of dumpling filled with egg instead of meat, since meat was such a luxury. I learned that romania, an eggplant, lentil, and pomegranate stew, was often eaten hot, but because of the poverty they experienced in the refugee camps and limited access to gas, they ate it cold and added flour into it to keep everyone full. I learned that Sito puts lemon peel into our salads because that is how her mom liked to eat it. And that we eat so much hindbe, a dandelion green, because it grows abundantly like weeds and nourishes food insecure families like ours. One day, after spending hours learning how to make melfouf, rolled cabbage leaves stuffed with rice and meat, I decided to ask her about the Six-Day War in 1867 because I knew she was in Palestine pregnant with my mom. Sito shared that she was nearly 9 months pregnant and had my uncle with her, who was a toddler. Sito was lying down on the bed resting when the first bullets penetrated the windows. She ran. She dodged the airstrikes and butchered bodies and spoke about the scent of charred bodies. Sito eventually made it into Jordan, waited weeks for a flight, and hid her belly as she boarded a plane to the US. She gave birth to my mom 2 days after landing. This is my paternal grandfather, Ahmed. He is holding my Baba Khalil, who is only a few months old here. Sido was also from Lid, Palestine, and became a refugee in 1948. I only met him one time as a 5-year-old visiting Palestine, and he was unwell. I don't know how old he was when he became a refugee, but if I had to guess based on the timeline of events I've tried to piece together, I would say he was about 12. About a year ago at our dining table, my dad shared that his father was a celebrated chef at an elitist restaurant frequented by affluent Arabs and tourists. But my Sido Ahmed never got to eat the food he cooked for others. And my father grew up in abject poverty, and he also did not get to eat many of the dishes that I grew up eating. Sido Ahmed died in the refugee camp. This is my paternal grandmother, Fawzia, with my dad. She was from Ramle, Palestine, and became a refugee at 7 or 8 years old. Unlike my other grandparents, Sito Fawzia talked about 1948 until she died in August 2021. She often spoke of the 48 massacre and referenced her pink frilly socks that were stained with blood from running for days. She never gave up her dream to return to her ancestral land. She refused to leave the camp and migrate to the US and promised that she would only leave the camp if it meant to return to her ancestral land. And when we talk about the Palestinian right to return, this is equivalent to land back, a decolonization and liberation of land. I believe that I create work about the collective memory of Palestine because Sito Fawzia taught me how to remember. I have very few photos of my paternal grandparents and forever grieve the relationship that displacement prevented me from having with them. Palestinian hospitality is legendary. It is regal, vibrant, abundant, and attentive. Creating space for our stories and practicing our culinary traditions in spite of ongoing settler colonial violence is a commitment to our cultural resistance. But our culture and our relationship to our land predates our resistance. With that guiding, I created Lulu's Kitchen to center and honor our connection to family, memory, community, and ancestral wisdom. Lulu's kitchen is an invitation to immerse the senses in pleasure through intimate dining experiences that reflect the remarkable qualities of Palestinian hospitality and the cuisine shared in our homes. It pays homage to the wisdom that I continue to inherit in this lifetime and in the co-creation of the world that I know is possible. Food is intended for joy and pleasure, for celebration and for the mundane. But as we know, food is also deeply political and it can be weaponized. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, the person I mentioned earlier, released a statement 11 days ago, and I quote him, "We are imposing a siege, a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we act accordingly." Gaza is 25 miles long and 6 miles wide. That is the distance from Escondido to City Heights, where I live. With 2.3 million people, we often refer to it as an open-air prison. It is one of the most densely populated regions in the world, and 80% of the Palestinians that are living in Gaza are from historic Palestine, the parts of Palestine that we now refer to as Israel. And I have to say that because when we are watching mainstream media, we are viewing it from a bubble and from a vacuum, and we are not looking at the context that has created the conditions for organizations and groups to pop up to resist settler colonialism. And we need to start naming it what it is. The borders have been sealed and Palestinians are unable to flee to become refugees right now. Hospitals, schools, and bakeries have been targeted and bombed. We are witnessing genocide on HD through our screens. And I'm not using sensational language. Palestinians are live streaming their own murders, and we are being painted as the aggressors. And I hope the folks in this room choose to not stand idly as we're witnessing genocide. I hope we remember from 10th grade history the 10 steps of genocide we learned about when we learned about the Holocaust, when we learned about the Armenian genocide. I hope the stories and the photos that I shared about my family today serve as a mirror for you to see your own family reflected in it and that it moves you to act. Thank you.
Lorraine just said, "Thank you for holding that space to me. Thank you for holding this space for us." We are going to transition and continue to hold Palestine in our hearts as we transition. So we are going to Somalia. And again, this session is really something. It really is. So I now will hand it over to Faiza, who will share her story. Faiza?
Good morning, everyone. Let's take a moment. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Let's just take a minute of silence. Good morning, everyone. My name is Faiza Warsame. I work with United Women of East Africa support team, serving the East African community. Sorry, can you guys hear me in the back? A little bit louder? Okay. Yeah, okay. It's an honor to be here with you guys today. Today we're going to be talking about food, which we all enjoy, right? Sorry, give me a second. Food is a language that is used everywhere around the world, but we don't really see that. That is a language. Learning and cooking traditional food is a way of holding on to your culture, your identity. It becomes who you are. It makes you who you are. Food is sometimes, it brings us together, and it has a powerful impact on an individual that we don't usually see. It's not just food that speaks the language. It's about the process and the people around it that makes it powerful. Knowing that food can be part of your identity, today I'll be sharing a little bit about one particular dish that we eat in our culture. So I'm from Somalia, and one particular dessert or appetizer that we eat that I'll be sharing with you guys today is called sambusa. Sambusa is an appetizer that we usually eat during the month of Ramadan, which is a month of fasting, a special occasion like weddings, holidays. Ramadan is the 9th month of Islamic calendar. It's a month of fasting where we're not eating or drinking all day from sunrise to sunset. It's a special month to all of us as Muslims. And during that month, it is a month where you're able to work on yourself. It's a month where you're able to build your connection with God, to be grateful for the things that you have. And it's a month where you're able to kind of work on yourself and do a lot of things for the people around you. As this special month is approaching for us, this is where we take the time to make sambusa, and sometimes we make sambusa a month or a week in advance because we're preparing for this beautiful month that we have. Remember earlier how I said food is not just a language, it's also the process and the people that make it special. So today I will be talking to you guys about sambusa and why sambusa is a special dessert or appetizer for us. But later on, I'll show you guys a little demonstration how that looks like, and you guys can see the process of making that and how that is special to us. It's a special occasion as you're sitting with your family members, friends, or neighbors to make this appetizer. Sambusa is a triangle pastry that's filled with chicken, meat, lentils, or coconut and cream cheese, or fish, or spinach. So you can do any filling to your liking. But the key to sambusa is if you are doing meat, any kind of meat that you're doing, whether it's fish or chicken or beef, you have to include onions. That is the key to make the flavor tasteful. Back home is very, very important to us. I'm not sure if you guys ever tasted East African dish, but we're big on seasoning, and that's something that's very, very, very important to us. So when we're making our filling, whether that is beef, whether that is spinach, whether that is coconut and cream cheese, we have to make sure that we're seasoning it correctly in order for those flavors to be tasting into your mouth. Back home, every family, when they're making and getting ready for sambusa, whether we're making it for a special occasion or during the special month for us, Ramadan, we make it from scratch. We do it, we make the dough, make it from scratch. But here in America, we're always running. We're always on a time crunch. So our community was able to find a substitute for us. Instead of making the dough from home and for it to take time, we use tortilla. And so we're going to be showing you guys in a little bit how we use tortilla as a way of making our sambusa. And it's such a beautiful thing for me to emphasize that we use tortilla because, Mexicans use tortilla. So now we're combining two different cultures, which makes it so beautiful for us, right? So back home when families are making sambusa, it takes time. It takes time, the process of it, talking about it, and we'll talk about what makes it so special to us. So when you're doing sambusa, you are sitting in a setting. You're sitting in a circle at a dining table, or you're sitting on the floor with family members. That could be your sister, your aunt, your mother, your grandmother. You're all sitting down together, and you're getting this preparation ready for this special occasion that you have for your family, for your community. And having those people come to the table and get ready to make this dish or this appetizer is where the magic happens. As each person is folding the sambusa and putting the filling, the magic of gathering starts to happen. Grandparents, parents, and children are able to share their stories and things that they have experienced and things that they have went through. This is where the special moment comes in, where parents and grandparents are able to talk about their stories, things that they have done when they were back home, how life used to be for them, what makes it special for them, and also advices that they're able to give us, what they used to do when they were the same age as us, which is a powerful time that we have with them. Remember, it's not just a moment of just making an appetizer. It's a gathering that you're able to feel a sense of belonging. You're having a healing circle with them, right? You're able to hear storytelling full of laughter and joy. As you are sitting there and hearing their story, sometimes for them, they're able to talk about their trauma, things that they went through. Trauma is something that's very, very taboo in our community. But in this circle, we're able to talk about things that they went through, the hardship that they had, and you're able to sympathize with them. You're able to see the journey that they took to make sure that we have a better life here, the journey that they took to make sure that we get here and able to share with us how the process it took for them to get here and the future that they would want for us, which is really powerful. It's a moment of bonding with your family members and your loved ones. It's a moment that you're creating with your loved ones, and remember, you're creating part of your identity. When I first started to learn how to make sambusa, it was with my mom. I was in 4th grade or 5th grade, and I remember that moment because it was very, very special to me. As we were getting ready for Ramadan, sitting at the table, preparing, and her teaching me how to make it and fold it each step, and for me to make sure that I'm following each step to not mess up and do it as perfectly as she is able to do. As I'm practicing how to fold the sambusa correctly and making sure that I'm not messing up any step, because there's multiple steps to it, she's able to tell me stories about her life and what it was like back home and how she used to live and what she used to do when she was my age and some of the things and struggles that she was able to see. It was such a special moment for me that I was able to experience with my mom, as she was telling me her stories and she was able to create, and she was creating with me a part of my identity that I wasn't aware of. Sometimes we don't see those small moments that you're sitting down with your family members and making a certain kind of traditional dish, but those moments are moments that are very special. And I remember making those sambusa with her, and I realized, you know what? This is a tradition that I want to continue doing when I have kids, and I hope my kids are able to do it with their kids as well, because it's such a special moment that you have with your family member. Making sambusa gives us that special feeling that, there's a special occasion coming, So sometimes when you're out in the community and someone, your neighbors or your family members or community are saying, you know what, hey, we need to do sambusa. When are you available? Let's go, I need you to help me with making sambusa. There's a special occasion that's coming, whether that is a wedding that's happening, whether that is a holiday coming up, or is the month of fasting that's coming up. And I remember with sambusa, which you guys are going to be seeing in a little bit, the cool thing about it is you're able to make so much, and you can put it in your freezer. And when you have a special guest that come over, or when the month of fasting is approaching, it's already ready for you, and you just take it out, warm it up, and fry it. And I remember especially when we get ready for the month of Ramadan, you have to do so much, right? Because you have a whole month that you're fasting, you're not eating, and when you're breaking your fast, you want to eat something that is special to you, which is the appetizer, which is sambusa. And so what we do is we make it a month or weeks ahead, and we make so much. Some families, they make up to 500 sambusa and just put it in the freezer, so when it's time getting closer to break your fast, you're able to take a certain amount, warm it up in the microwave, and then just deep fry it, which is really, really special. I know for the sambusa, And the cool thing about sambusa when you're making sambusa is not only is it a healing moment, not only is it a special moment, you're able to add more tradition to it. I remember right now, like especially when Ramadan gets closer, when we have a special holiday coming up, and my mom and I are making sambusa, we started this tradition where we do competition. So now we compete to see who makes more than the other person. She was my teacher, but now I'm her teacher because I'm able to do it faster than her, which is really cool. And you're able to do that with your community member, and you're able to create this sense of belonging with each other. So I'll show you guys a little demonstration of how we fold sambusa so you guys are able to see. At first it might seem difficult, but it really isn't. So this is just a sample. You can get tortilla from anywhere, usually Costco, Food for Less, anywhere that you get your tortilla. So what we do is we put multiple tortillas together, and then we fold it in half. As you're folding in half, it's very, very special that you press it down as you're making a line that you're going to be cutting soon. After you fold it, you're going to be opening it up, and now you're able to see the line that I was able to make, right? So what we do is we get a knife, and then we're going to be cutting that area. Let me see if I can see it. So now you have a half. We put it together. And now you're going to fold again. And then make sure that you're pressing it down so you're able to get that line again and you know where to cut. So right now you have your triangle. And so all of our tortilla should try to be like triangle, which you guys are going to see why. Right here we have our special sauce. It's just flour and water, which is going to be our glue. So what you're going to be doing is, this is the part where it's a little complicated, but it takes time for you to practice, you know? So you're going to make sure that the pointing part is facing upward. You're going to get your left side, and you're going to fold it. And you're going to make sure that it's not folded high, just halfway. You're going to get. The key to making sambusa is making sure that the bottom is closed. As later you're going to be frying it, if your bottom is open, when you fry it, oil is going to go in, and it's not going to have that amazing taste that you want the flavors to taste. So you're going to make sure that you're closing it. After you close it, you're going to open the right side. Now you're going to get your glue, and you're going to put it right here. And then you're going to close. And now it's closed. So we didn't get any fillings right now. We just wanted to show you guys how to do it. So what you're going to do is you have your filling. This is where you're going to be putting your filling. As you can see here, the space is not too big. Is a good amount of size. So that means it will take a spoon or 1 spoon and a half to put your filling. Once you put your filling, you're going to tuck this part that's facing you inward or outward. And then you're going to tuck it all the way in. So you can make sure that your filling doesn't come out. So you have to tuck it all the way in. After that, as you can see like a triangle side. And you're going to go back to your glue again. And then mark the area that is triangle right here. And then you're going to press it all the way down. And then you're going to make sure that this side right here and this corner right here is closed so no oil goes in. And then you have your triangle sambusa. And so this is how we make our sambusa. And so as a family, you're sitting there together. You're making this so much sambusa and you're doing the filling. And as you're sitting down and doing the sambusa, you tend to forget how to make it because your hands are so used to it now. You're just making it and not realizing that you're making it. You don't need to remember the steps anymore because your hands got used to it now. And now you're so into the story that either your parents or grandparents or aunts or sisters are talking about, or you are going to be the storytellers. I think the cool thing about this setting is you become a storytellers. Sometimes we think that we're not storytellers, but we all are storytellers, and you're able to tell stories. And by the time you look down, you have 500 sambusa already. We have a sample right here So for anybody that wants to try, you're more than welcome to try. Also, we also have sambusa later today, so please try those sambusa, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. One thing that I wanted to leave you guys with is I want us to take a moment, kind of close your eyes. Close your eyes. Imagine that you are sitting at a table with your loved ones. While you're sitting at the table with your loved ones, what is a special dish that you are trying to do with them, or you're doing with them, or you're making with them? What is some stories or things that you're telling each other or saying? Think about the laughter and the conversation that you're having. How does that make you feel? What does that remind you of? Does it bring you a childhood memory? Does it bring you a memory of someone that you love that passed away? Kind of think about it for a minute and imagine it. And then you can close your eyes. You can open your eyes. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Faiza. For those of you that have never had sambusas, we will have some later today. So thank you so much. Faiza, I've never seen the corn tortilla sambusas. I'm really intrigued. Okay, so thank you, Faiza. So we have now one more story that we'd love to share, and for that one, I would love to pass it off to Eden and Sige. Eden, you'll be starting?
So my name is Eden Mengistu. This is my colleague, Tagalam Barhane. And today we're actually going to be showing you guys a presentation of a ceremony that we hold very near and dear to our hearts as Ethiopians, and that's our Bunna ceremony. So we are coming from United Women of East Africa, working with East African communities in City Heights. And so this is just a traditional ceremony that we practice on a daily. And so today I'm going to be going over the steps of the process and what the overall ceremony means for us in whole. So the ceremony traditionally consists of a routine of steps that can last anywhere from 40 minutes to even an hour long. And so this really depends on how many people are drinking. So for instance, let's say we have the participants up on stage drinking. So this can take us anywhere from 40 minutes, as I said, to an hour. However, let's say everybody here in the first row is joining us for the ceremony as well. That can take us anywhere to a couple of hours. So it really depends on how many people are drinking, and it really determines the length of the ceremony. And so the ceremony is traditionally a little bit longer because it's also held for 3 rounds. And so when I mean 3 rounds, as you can see, it's Uggy here cooking the beans. So once they're cooked, it's going to be put into the coffee pot and brewed. It's then going to be served. Once served, the coffee pot is then going to be filled with more water. Once that is cooked, it's served again. So that's our second round. And then it's filled with more water and cooked for the last time and served for the third time. So it's a lot of coffee, essentially, but it's definitely a lengthy process, and it really allows the time to be spent with the people that you're gathering with. And so because of how lengthy the process can be, there are also many additions that can be included. I saw the itan being passed around. So itan is Ethiopian incense, and so it's burned while the coffee is cooking, and so it really acts as a beginning of the process. So for instance, if I was heading over to my grandmother's house, and I'm kind of walking over to her house and I smell the incense burning, I do know automatically that coffee is being made. So it's like my favorite trigger moment, and so that it's really, really awesome. So there's also small finger foods that are also served because it is a bit of a lengthy process. So here we have some popcorn, we have small cookies and candies. And so this really adds, in my opinion, to help disguise the length of the time, but it really just adds so that everybody can feel the warm welcome and the bonding of the moment. So if you guys can see here, Tsegi is cooking the beans. So once the raw beans are cleaned, they then change from an earthy green color to sort of like a deep red, dark brown color. And you guys will be able to hear and smell the coffee being made as well. So it's a really hard scent to forget. It honestly fills the room, so hopefully it's something that you guys will be able to remember. And so once the beans are fully cooked, they're then going to be grinded, and after they're cooled. So similar to any other coffee process, the grinds are then mixed with water, and they're poured into the coffee pot, and this is what we call a jabana. So in Ethiopian culture, the coffee is cooked in the jabana, and it's served in these small teacups. These are called sini or funjal, and they're made of porcelain and ceramic material that kind of sets as the serving size. So it's really, really small, but the caffeine is incredibly high in the coffee that we drink, so it kind of balances out. So with this entire process, I would say the most significant tool that is needed is the jabana. So these are specially made back home, and it's a bit more difficult to get here in the States, but there's certain stores that sell them, and it's most significant because it acts as the tool that's used to cook, to filter, and to serve the coffee. So it holds many tools. So because of its unique shape, it's brewed and it's sat on an angle to allow the coffee to filter. So it really allows the filters to settle at the bottom and allows you to get that drinkable, clear coffee. And so if you guys can see down below, the jabana there, it can be shaped in one of two ways. So the one that we have here is spoutless. So it does not have an additional spout, just the one that is on the top. And so with these two different jabana shapes, they essentially act in the same way, but it really just depends on the settling time, and that's about it. But it really adds a specific flavor to the coffee as well. And so, as I mentioned before, this is quite a lengthy process, and it takes quite some time, but this really just allows for the conversations that are being had and the storytelling to continue among the family and friends that are gathering for the moment. And so in many households, so this ceremony is conducted at the bare minimum at least once a day. So in many Ethiopian households, you will find bunna being made at least once, but in many other households, typically it's served 3 times a day. So it follows each meal period, so you'll have it once during breakfast, you'll have it again during lunch, and you'll have it again during dinner. So lots of coffee. And this also includes each of the 3 rounds. So you'll have those 3 rounds during breakfast, you'll have those 3 rounds again during lunch, and another 3 rounds for dinner. So it is a lot of coffee. I think as Ethiopians, we've kind of got accustomed to it. But it's really a nice time that we're allowed to sit and kind of relax with our friends and family. And it really just kind of gives us that time to bond together. So how many times you do it in a day really depends on the household. Personally, my grandmother, she really does it only once in a day. But for instance, my aunt, she is lucky enough to have all of her close friends living super nearby her. And so I know during breakfast time, she'll be making bunna. I know if I come during lunch, she'll be making bunna. And I know even if I come during nighttime, it can be 9 p.m., there will most likely be bunna being made. So as I said, it's served often, but it's also offered as an act of hospitality. So once guests arrive to one's house, it's customary to offer them bunna as soon as they enter. So it's really quite hospitable for Ethiopians to perform the entire ceremony for guests, and because it's quite lengthy, it's really kind of like a requirement to stay all 3 of the rounds, just to make sure that we're being kind and, we're not being rude and leaving before the ceremony is finished. So it really sets a long and warm, intimate scenario between the family and friends that are having the discussions, and it really sets a sort of safe space for the people. And so in the Ethiopian culture, like many other East African cultures, therapy can seem taboo. And so in essence, the Bunna ceremony acts as an alternative therapeutic technique. And so it really encourages discussion in a safe space, very similar to group therapy. So this really allows for family and friends to openly and freely talk and ask anything of their choosing that may not be widely accepted or appropriate in any other spaces. And so this time is used for a multitude of things, but primarily it's used for these family and friends to catch up with one another and to really allow the time for each other to be updated on family affairs and other things happening within the community. And so this time really strengthens the bonds between each of the individual participants and our community overall. And so this ceremony is really sacred, and it's appreciated and respected as a method of bringing family and friends together. It really builds and grows our relations and allows us to cherish the time that we do have together here. And so it kind of acts as our own little quick escape from the realities of the real world as we gather amongst one another. So I did want to thank you all so much for your time and for attending this amazing event. We are so happy to share such a small part of our culture that means the world to us, and we hope that it means just as much to you all. And so hopefully you guys are able to get a little taste of the bunna. If I can have some descriptions of how it tastes compared to the regular coffee that we would get from a regular chain retailer. How does this compare to the everyday Starbucks, for instance? Stronger. Stronger for sure, absolutely, yeah. I would limit it to maybe 1 or 2 cups, or else no sleep for you tonight. Uplifting, absolutely. It's definitely a great wake up in the morning. Lots of hard work, yeah, absolutely. It's really, as I've stated multiple times, it's quite a process. It's very lengthy, so it's really customary that we drink all of the rounds so that, 1, we're not wasting the coffee, and 2, that we're really allowed the quality time that we're spending with each other. But yeah, thank you all so much. I really hope you guys enjoy the bunna and all of the experience that was brought today. Thank you again. Yeah, yes. Okay. If we can have 5 or 6 people from the back that would like to try the fresh made coffee by Zuggy here, you guys can come down to the front and go ahead and try some fresh bunna.
Thank you. Thank you, Eden, and thank you, Sige. Oh my goodness. This is really, really amazing. So yeah, it looks like we've got about 5 or 6 people that are coming up, which is wonderful. And so as folks do that, I know this session was slated to end at 11:30. And I wanted to see if there is anyone in this space that would like to share a personal anecdote or a personal story that has come up for them after hearing from these speakers. And I know folks might also just not be feeling that, and that's okay. But I wanted to extend the invitation for anyone that wants to share a story that's important to them to just sort of raise your hand. It doesn't have to be this minute. It could be in another couple of minutes. But is there anyone that would like to share a personal story? A memory of food and how it has maybe shaped, yeah? Wonderful. I see two. Hannah, can I pass the microphone to you?
Hi, my name is Maria López.
Y tengo raíces de gente, mis padres vienen de Oaxaca,
And
México.
so my origin is from Oaxaca, Mexico.
Esta historia que me acaban ¿cómo se llama? De contar, me regresó a mi niñez.
And so the story that you just told us returned me to my childhood.
Aprendí en Oaxaca a ir al campo y recoger chapulines.
And so when I was out in Oaxaca, in the fields as a child, I would pick up grasshoppers.
Al principio era como un
Ah,
poco
perdón.
miedoso,
Sorry, not grasshoppers, a little fruit called capulines.
no, chapulines.
Okay. Chapulines, sorry, the grasshoppers. Okay.
Era un poco miedoso porque era niña,
So it was a little bit scary because I was a girl,
pero se me hizo emocionante cuando los empecé a cocinar
but it was a very exciting when I began to cook them.
y estábamos todos, la familia, probando la patita, la cabecita,
It was very exciting when we would try the little head and the little feet.
pero me aprendí a comer con mi papá, con mi mamá. Aprendí que frijoles, que chapulines, no era la comida, sino era la familia.
But I learned in the whole process that it wasn't just about eating these grasshoppers, it was about being together with the family.
Y nos juntábamos para compartir historias de mi papá, de mi mamá, cómo sufrieron.
And we would get together and they would tell us stories, my father and my mother, about how much they had actually suffered.
Y ahora yo tengo 8 hijos.
And now I have 8 kids.
No preparo chapulines,
I do not fix grasshoppers,
pero preparo tamales.
but I make tamales.
Y vuelvo a repetir las mismas historias de mi papá.
And I share the stories that my father shared with me.
Y me encanta mi familia.
And I love that. And I love that with my family.
Gracias por compartir esta historia conmigo.
And thank you for sharing all your stories.
Hello, I'm so grateful and honored to be here. My name is Nazdira, and I originally come from Mexico. My family comes from Morelos and Jalisco. We also migrated from like the mountains of Oaxaca and Guerrero. So when I was a child growing up, we experienced a lot of trauma. We did not get a chance to necessarily talk and gather together. Moving forward or future forward, I moved to the United States. And I moved from this tiny little town in Jalisco to concrete jungle in Compton and lived there for a long time. I felt like I was an uprooted plant, losing a lot of connection to my culture, my family, my connection of being able to play on the land as a child and connect to the land, to then no longer having that connection and being isolated from actual food with substance, food that was being grown from the land. I know this is going from what we were talking about, but I'll get to that point. So when my grandparents passed away, I felt like I lost a huge connection to who I was, who my identity was, because I felt so detached from my country to now being on this land and not being of this land. When my grandparents passed away, I felt very detached from who I was, and so what I did is that I started praying to my grandparents. And the spirits of my grandparents came and spoke to me, and they told me that the way that I would connect back to my lineage and back to who I was and back to who I am and who I'm supposed to be in this moment in time is to start working with food. And to start working with food that they used to make for me. And so I started like waking up with these flavors in my mouth and taste in my mouth that I remember as a child that I used to eat, but I could not describe it, and I didn't know how to make it, so I started asking my mom, and my mom started teaching me how to make it. Epazote was number one. Epazote was like what is the bridge builder from me now in this real world, in this 3D world, to the spirit world. So I'm really, really grateful that I get to share this and experience this connection to my lineage by working with plants and food. And food is bigger than just nourishment for the body. It's nourishment for the soul and in the way that we connect with each other. And sometimes I think, is it plants that bring us together or humans that brings the plants together? You know, like which one is it? And I think it's the plants that are bringing us together. Thank you so very much for allowing me.
Thank you for sharing. Was there someone else? Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Wow, this session is like, I feel like we could have an entire gathering just around this and hearing these stories. Thank you for sharing all of your stories. You know, we do actually have time for one more if there's anyone else that wants to share. Rika, the hand went up very quickly, so we'll pass to you, Rika. Okay, Rika.
I work with this small organization that we have a storefront in City Heights called Food Shed, and we do cooking classes twice a month. Around 2 weeks ago, I was at Inequi Flowers, and we were having a conversation with Lorraine, and it was a super nice conversation that set the tone for the next cooking class. And she was sharing with us how, like at an event, she made the whole event to stop at the time of eating, and everybody had to sit down and eat. And it came so natural on the last cooking class that we had that everybody sit down, and Christina and I were right there. Everybody sit down and just have conversations around food. And I think that sometimes we forget. Anyways, that conversation was sparked because of the conversation with Lorraine. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing the whole panel, all your stories, and specifically for what's happening right now in Gaza and in the Middle East, because we come to this event and Christina and I were talking about posting. We post in social media stuff about our organization, and it is hard. It was so hard to make a post around food when you see the world falling apart, you know? And so I think, you know, just when we sit down, let's think about everyone else that is suffering and enjoy food, you know?
So we are, unfortunately, at time. I know that there's probably a lot more stories. I know there are a lot more stories to be told, and I hope that they will be told here and outside of here. We don't have time for questions and answers, unfortunately, but we now have an extended family. Everyone in this room is an extended family, and I hope that outside of this room, you will continue to connect with one another and share these stories. These stories are important, they matter, and they are what will hold us together in times like now. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, our speakers, for opening your hearts and being vulnerable and sharing your stories with us. Long live Palestine. Yes, we can. We'll actually have them each say their names. And also, I want to acknowledge their businesses. you can continue to support Lulu's Kitchen. You can have sambusas later today, and there is still coffee, more coffee could be had. But yes, just introduce, you say your names again, and please connect after this.
Thank you so much. Lorraine Khalil Rahan, sometimes Lorraine, sometimes Lulu, depending on the context. I think today I can be Lulu.
Faiza or Sameh.
Tagalam Burhana, or T.
Erin Mengistu, and from United Women of East Africa.
Thank you, and thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for being here today.